Hey, all you stumbling, bumbling bumblebees. I'm Del Robin Jr. the Third, and this is Slow to Pro, a YouTube series where I go from slow to battling for the front of the back. Today we have round 8 of 10 for Zealous Racing League's Galaxy Tour. We are at an extra sunny and extra hot Laguna Seca for a 45-minute sprint on a 45°C track with no pit stops, so we got to take care of the tires. It's a mixed class race, so we've got 9 GT4 cars, 20 GT3 cars, and we will be starting in P17 with 1 alien behind us. So here comes the green flag. And here's a slow tip. At the start of every race, this radar that I've marked, yeah, it's worth more than Bitcoin is going to be in 5 years. It's super important to know if someone behind you is maybe snuck up the outside, so you know to keep a tighter line through turn 1 to avoid conflict. You might think we only have 2 eyes, but that's because you're not following the TB12 regiment. That's how you grow a 3rd eye, so you can watch that radar. So here we go. The alien in the yellow Ferrari is making his move up the inside, so we're down 1 spot from the start after the first few turns. But the car is in one piece, which is what matters most, at least to me, and I'm sure everybody around me too. Low Fuel Motorsport also happens to be running Laguna Seca this week. So I did 10 sprint races, and my cat only shut the PC off 1 time, so I fixed that. Those races were 25 minutes each, gave me a ton of practice racing in traffic with a line of cars in front, and good thing, definitely needed the practice, especially coming up to the corkscrew here. You really got to adjust your braking point and be extra careful not to lock the front wheels when the front end gets light, otherwise you're going to go right into the back end of whatever poor soul is in front of you. And we are coming down now to the final 3 turns of lap 1, and the race is starting to come down to a simmer as everyone's tires start to come up in temperature and heart rates begin to decrease. We've had no incidents so far, headed through the final turn, and this is where things will typically begin to get a little spicy in a race full of responsible drivers. Usually lap 1 is basically a game of survive, hold your position the best you can, but ultimately yield if you have to, because if you're truly faster, you'll catch him, but not with damage. And then lap 2 is, well, lap 2 is where you lick the stamp and then you send it. So you can usually expect to see some off-track action starting sometime soon, and it's a good idea to keep it in the back of your mind, so hopefully you don't become a part of that nasty action. We're going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. The cars in front built a small gap right up until the Andretti hairpin, where our alien in the yellow Ferrari makes a move which allows us to catch back up to the action, so let's see that now. The Audi in front goes a bit deep into the braking zone, which opens a window for the Ferrari to get side by side, and so he does through the second part of turn 2. They're side by side now, headed for turn 3. Audi's got the inside line, does a great job holding it. Ferrari does a good job keeping the outside line, and they're going to stay side by side headed into turn 4. And the Audi gets a little bit of a better run, but now coming up to the big turn here, the Ferrari's got the inside line, and I think this is where he makes the move stick. Yeah. The Audi gets a little bit outside there on the racing line, loses a bit more grip than he anticipated. I thought about having a shot at the inside, and then I thought better of it because I ain't that good, and I wasn't that fast either. I would have never got alongside of him, so it would have just put me in an awkward line. I would have lost more time. So sometimes it's better to be patient. And we're going to go ahead and fast forward just a tiny bit this time as we stay on the bumper of this green and black Audi right to here. We come to the final turn, and we've got our first victim to Laguna Seca. A blue Lamborghini rejoins for the straight, and now we got ourselves a nice 4-car train battling for position 16 through 19 as we start lap 4. And I'm not counting the yellow Ferrari out in front because he'll be gone in the distance soon. And I was also kind of assuming that the blue Lamborghini had just gone off track a bit on the final turn, and maybe spun, and I thought he would just begin to pull away from us as he found his pace again. So my main focus was basically just on running the best laps and lines that I could to stay as close to this Audi as possible. Basically just waiting for him to slip enough to open a window wide enough for Vinny to fit into. He almost does it here, but he holds his line just good enough to keep me from sneaking up the inside. Probably would have been dangerous to go up the inside through here anyway, but I was willing to try it at this point in the race. As we come up to the corkscrew now, they built a bit of a gap. I was always a bit ginger going through that turn there with traffic in front of me. Didn't want to rail into anybody. But we're able to close the gap up pretty quick. The blue Lamborghini doesn't have the best corkscrew, and then doesn't have the best turn here. These two bucks lock horns, and I make the quick decision to shoot the gap while it's there and bag myself a two-piece. The Audi still has some fight in him, but I've got the inside line to the final turn, so we're gonna make this stick like the pages to a Victoria's Secret catalog before the internet decimated their male subscriber base. So when the HUD updates in the top left, we'll be up to P16, which is up 2 positions, one position from where we started. It's 2 if you want to make me feel good and just pretend that yellow Ferrari piloted by the alien started in front of me. He was always gonna finish in front of me. Might as well pretend. I'm gonna call it 2 positions. So for the remainder of the race, the Audi behind us kept a pretty close gap. So close that I could only afford like a minor mistake that would kill my lap by about a second. As long as I kept the majority of my laps on pace, we could build a gap. But there were some laps where the gap got down to 1.5 seconds, and then I'd slowly build it back up. By the end, after 2 more cars wrecked, we crossed the line on the lead lap in P14. And I was around 2 seconds or so off pace from the alien who won the race. So I'm pretty happy with the result. The first 4 or 5 laps were insanely intense. We've got 2 rounds left, and we have next week off. So next week, I'll bring you a race from probably this week's LFM Sprint Series. And then we will be back with League Racing for Mount Panorama in what should be an exciting war of attrition. The mountain section should be great. Championship wise, we've held on to our P17 position and closed the gap to P16 to just 7 points, and the gap to 15 is now down to 12 points. So a good result at Mount Panorama could go a very long way. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching Slow to Pro. I'm Dale Robin Jr. the third. You guys have the kind of day you want to have.
Alright, the race is over. Good job, mate. You did your best. Bring it back to the pits.